Your Glas-Avenue software allows you to order online directly with a number of different vendors. Currently, at the time of this tutorial, you can order online with Pilkington, PGW, Migrant, and Guardian. In order to do the online ordering, there's first a few setup things that you'll have to do, and so you'll want to watch the tutorial on the online order setup. Once it's set up and you're ready to go, these are the steps that you'd go through. So we've got a ticket started here, and we're going to go ahead and go to our Auto Glass tab. We're going to go ahead and put in our vehicle. And now we're going to go to our Glass tab. And we have our parts here on the Glass tab now. And we're going to go down to the Vendor Inquiry button. And when we pull up the Vendor Inquiry window, up at the top, you can see it's got a vendor there. Now if we click on the down arrow here, we have all of the different vendors that I have set up to order with. Normally it'll be in alphabetical order, so normally Guardian would have actually been in the window. But as you can see, if you check the make this vendor the default, then that is the vendor that'll come up when you first open the window. In the items section will be a list of all the parts that we pulled up for that particular vehicle. To the right of that, we've got our descriptions, and then in the other columns there, we've got the available, committed, on purchase. So that's from your inventory, what you currently have in your inventory for these parts. Then we've got some columns there, vendor cost 1, 2, 3. You can import cost files from your vendors. So if you get your vendor to send you a cost file with all the different parts and costs in an Excel or CSV format, those can be imported into your main street, and those would then show up here. And they're always listed in least to most cost. So whatever vendor is the least cost will show on that vendor cost 1 column, and it'll give the cost and then which vendor it is. One thing about the vendor cost file is some of the vendors will send you those costs, other vendors will not. So you might not be able to get that cost file, but if you do, you can watch a tutorial on how to load that or give tech support a call and we'll help you load that file. So then down at the bottom before we do the inquiry, let's take a look down there. We've got the ship to box there, and it's normally set to deliver. And if you have multiple locations to deliver to, you can click on the down arrow and pick which location. If your account's a will call or you just want to order this for will call, you can change that to will call there. And then below that, we've got that first available checkbox. Now that is only going to be used for PGW and Guardian. Pilkington and Migrant, they assume you want this delivered on your next available delivery, whereas with the PGW and the Guardian, they initially had it set up where they wanted you to put in a delivery date and time. So by checking the first available, though, it acts just like Pilkington and Migrant in that it'll just be on your next available run. Now, if you did uncheck that, the date will be today's date, and then the time will be 2 hours from the current time. You do have to keep in mind if you're going to do it that way that you need to look at that time. So if my delivery is at 4 o'clock and I've got 12:34 in there right now as my delivery time, obviously when I go to inquire on this, it's going to give me a message saying that the parts aren't available because they can't meet my delivery time. So you do want to change that. Probably the only time you're going to use that is if you don't want these parts for a couple of days and you want to schedule this delivery out a few days. So normally you check that first available and then it'll default to that and always have that checked. Now when I want to check the pricing, I can only do one vendor at a time currently. And so I would either choose the Inquire All Glass button and it'll check on all the pieces of glass there, or I can say Inquire Selected. And if I want to do the Inquire Selected, I of course have to check which ones I want to inquire on. So I would just need to put check marks in each of the boxes. We're going to go ahead and choose Inquire All Glass. And then it's going to show me that it's going out and waiting for a response. Once it gets a response back, it'll put all the items in the bottom portion there and show me what's available and what the pricing is and when it'll be shipped. And now that it's returned the parts, the ones that are available, you can see in that far left column there for order are has green, and there's a little checkbox that I can check to order that part. That first part is not available, and you can see in the vendor note section that it shows there's no stock on that. Now you might have seen in between the two windows there's the show only available. So if I were to check that, then that first part would go away, and only the parts that are available that I can order would be listed. The only thing you want to be careful with that checkbox is if there's only one particular part and they don't have any in stock, then the window on the bottom portion is going to be blank after it gets a response back, and it's going to look almost as if the program isn't working properly. So you might want to just keep that in mind, that certain parts might not show up if they're not available if that's checked. You can see also that there is a quantity available column. Now, different vendors do it differently. With PGW, they actually show the quantity they have. Pilkington will only ever show one. They might actually have 100 sitting in their warehouse, but it's only going to show one because that's all we're really requesting to order. So they show that they have one. The vendor note, oftentimes there's not going to be anything in there, but you can see sometimes they do have different notes in there. And then you've got your unit cost. That is your actual cost that you would pay for this particular part, the date that it's going to ship, and the time. And you want to make sure to take a look at that, because if you do just pick first available and they have to ship this in from another location, that ship date might be a day or two from now. So you don't want to just blindly order that and assume that you're going to get it on your next run, and then when it doesn't show up, wonder what's going on. So double check the ship date and time, and then it's going to show the warehouse that that is coming out of and how it's being shipped. And then all the stuff over to the right after that pretty much is usually not information that you need to really worry about. Now, if you wanted to check the price of one of the other vendors, you would simply go up to the top and click on the other vendor, and then of course you'll have to do the inquiry again. So let's go ahead now and we'll go back here and inquire one more time. And now we'll go ahead and order the part. Now, to order the part, we're simply going to click into the little checkbox there next to the part that we want to order. And before we order this, if we the program is always going to create a purchase order number. Now, if you have the purchase order module, it actually will then create a purchase order with all of the part information and pricing information. And if you want to actually print that purchase order out, then you can go down here to the bottom and check the print PO box. If you don't have the purchase order module, the program is still going to generate a purchase order number and send that number to the vendor, and then that purchase order number will always be on the packing slip that you get. Now, before I place this order, I want to talk about one other thing here, and that's the cost. We have the cost of this part here, and that cost can be transferred to your ticket. But if you don't have the part already on your ticket, it can't put the cost on at this time that we order it. It would, however, put that cost on later when we receive the part in. So I'm just going to quickly get out of here. I'm going to add the part, and then we'll go back into the vendor inquiry, and I'm going to inquire it again, and then we'll go ahead and order it so you can see this. All right, so before I order this, the ticket does have to be saved as a work order or an invoice. If it's not, when I go to order this, it's going to give me a message saying that I have to save the ticket, and it's only going to give me an option of order or invoice. Once I've saved it, then I can go ahead and order it. So I'm just going to click on the order now, and it'll show that it's getting a response. Once it gets back a response, you're going to see up at the top, it's going to have the PO number that it generated, and then the order confirmation number, that's going to be your packing slip number. And now I can go ahead and just choose close at the bottom to exit out of this window. And over in the cost column there, you can see it has updated the cost on this item based on what was on the inquiry screen. Now, if I had ordered this and no part was on the screen already, if I hadn't selected that part, it wouldn't be able to update the cost field. So again, when you receive that part into the inventory from the purchase order, again, if you have the purchase order module, it would at that time then update the cost field. So just something to keep in mind. And then once I have placed my order, I can go to the Notes tab, and in the internal notes, it's going to show me that I had placed an order with PGW and give me the vendor order number, my purchase order number, the servicing location, and the parts that were ordered. And again, if you have the purchase order module, you can go over here and click on the purchase orders button, and it would show any parts that have been ordered and the purchase order that it was ordered on, and the vendor as well. And I also mentioned if you have the purchase order module, it creates a purchase order. So I'll just show you that real quick. It was purchase order 20. So if we just go in here and search up purchase order 20, there is our order to PGW for this particular part. If you have any difficulties with the online ordering or had any problems setting it up, just give us a call here at Tech Support and we'll walk you right through it.